Here and welcome to Inside Albania with me, Alice Taylor. Today I'm taking you again out of the studio to one of my favourite places in Albania. I'm in the northern city of Shkodra, about 2.5 hours drive north of Tirana. Now, Shkodra is known as Albania's cradle of culture, and that is because for centuries it's been home to artists, musicians, intellectuals, writers, photographers, and everything in between. It was also a centre of massive resistance during communism against the oppressive totalitarian regime, and this resulted in the people of Shkodra being cracked down on big time by the dictator. They suffered a lot and they were persecuted, but they went on, they were strong, and they continued. Today, Shkodra is becoming an incredible tourist destination. This street here, the pedestrianised pedonal of the city, comes alive at night with live music and dancing and cocktails. But around the city as well, there's plenty to see and do. You have Lake Shkodra, which is great for hiking, for walking around, for boating, water sports, exploring. You have the Albanian Alps all around. You have Theth and Lepushe. You have the castle of Rozafa, which we're going to be going to a bit later. 3 rivers and in stunning, incredible nature, tradition and culinary delights. I'm here for 3 days. I'm exploring Shkodra. I'm going to Lepushe and to Zogai, and I'm going to take you on lots of adventures with me. Are you ready? Hajde me mua. So this is the Marubi Museum. Now, for those that don't know, Marubi was a dynasty of photographers, 3 generations that lived and worked in Shkodra, and they've become incredibly famous for the work that they did. At the start of photography, you know, they were taking pictures which defined generations of Albanian culture. They did portraits and photos of people in the traditional costumes of the times, and these images have become vital in constructing some of Albania's history. There was one photo in particular which is very famous. It is a picture of a woman topless. It's become very, very famous, Albania's first topless picture, but it was very interesting because at the time, to take a picture like that in such a conservative area, this is very curious, and how that photo came about, people don't really know. But today there is the Marubi Museum here, where there is a permanent exhibition of Marubi's work and other exhibitions that come and go to do with photography. I once did an interview with a woman in Tirana, and she told me, oh, my great-grandfather had his photo taken by Marubi. And I said, oh, that's amazing. She said, I've got the picture upstairs. And I thought, okay. And she went upstairs and she pulled out from underneath the mattress this box and took out an original Marubi photograph and showed it to me. It was just stored away underneath her mattress. That picture is probably worth an absolute fortune. So this street is called Rruga Gjuhadol. And I asked what it meant, because this is not a word I've come across before. And I was told that in the old city of Shkodra, this street was a bit out of the centre, you know, you had to walk a bit of a long way to get here. So by the time you got here, you were like, you know, panting because you were tired, and your tongue would be out. And that's how it got the name Rruga Gjuhadol. Yes, Leah. So this is the Cathedral of Shkodra. Now, one of the things that I love about Albania is religious tolerance. Albania is a country comprising Muslims, Catholics and Orthodox, as well as Bektashi as well. And everyone lives in harmony. Last night we were walking through Shkodra and you could hear the bells chiming and the call to prayer at the same time. There's churches and mosques next to each other. There's not many countries where this level of religious harmony exists, but it wasn't always this way. During communism, for almost 50 years, religion was banned. And priests, imams, religious people were rounded up, they were tortured, they were imprisoned, they were executed. Churches and mosques and other religious sites were burned to the ground and destroyed or repurposed by the communist regime. It wasn't until the 90s when religion was allowed again. Now, this cathedral here is a Catholic cathedral. And what's special about it is, over the hundreds of years that it has stood here, it has remained. It survived sieges, it survived the Ottomans, it survived an earthquake which destroyed much of Shkodra at the start of the century. It also survived the communist regime. It was used by a communist women's group during the regime as a meeting place, but they did not destroy it like they did many other places. It remains today as a central meeting point in Shkodra. There's people sitting around, walking around, and it's beautiful inside, although much of the original architecture has been lost. Another thing you'll notice when you're in Shkodra is a lot of this architecture. This is from the Italian fascist period at the beginning of the 20th century. Now, you also find examples of this in Tirana, maybe not as much. Shkodra is full of it. There are entire buildings and like hotels and today apartment blocks and municipal buildings which are in this style. You can see all of the Italian style architecture and the gorgeous color schemes as well. Now, Shkodra has a very, very strong Italian influence, and it has for centuries. But even today, you'll find many people in Shkodra speak Italian fluently, and some even still use the Italian name Scutari when they refer to it. So here on this wall, we have, it kind of looks like the Illuminati symbol, doesn't it? And then underneath, God sees everything. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be reassuring or a threat. What do you think? So we're almost at the top of Rozafa Castle here. And this valley, they told me that every winter, the Drin, which is the river you see here, which flows all the way from Zadrima, it bursts its banks and floods much of this land. And the people that live here, they mainly live on the second floor of their homes because the first floor is submerged. And the mosque below that you see that was built a couple of hundred years ago and has obviously been restored, the windows, the water is up to the windows normally. And it's been built in such a way, the walls constructed in such a way to protect it from the floodwaters. And this happens pretty much every year, they say. You've got to be pretty stubborn to continue living here. Welcome to Rozafa Castle. Behind me is Shkodra city and the Buna River, and over here beyond is the Drin. Now, Rozafa Castle has been here for 2,500 years. It was built by the Illyrians, the Labiat tribe. It stood here for centuries, but do you know how it got its name? Well, there were three brothers that originally built the castle, stone by stone, and every morning they would build it all day. But then when they came the next morning to continue the work, they found that the walls had been torn down, and they didn't know what to do. They were told that if one of you sacrifices your wife, puts her in the foundations of the castle, then you will be successful. Obviously, this was a bit of a difficult decision. They couldn't decide which wife to give up, which one to sacrifice for the greater good. So they came to an agreement. Whoever's wife comes first tomorrow with the lunch will be the one that we sacrifice. But they promised, we will not tell our wives about the plan. And they all made a promise and swore that they wouldn't tell their wives. However, two of the brothers broke the promise. They told their wives and they said, don't bring lunch tomorrow because you're going to end up walled up in a castle. But the third brother, he kept his promise, his better. And when his wife, Rozafa, turned up the next day with his lunch in her hands, he was heartbroken. She found out her fate, that she would have to be sacrificed to the castle, and she said, okay, you can put me in the foundations of the castle, but leave my right breast exposed so I can continue to feed my infant son. And so it was, and the castle was constructed and still stands today. Now, this legend of Rozafa is a little bit controversial. It represents the sacrifice of women, what women give for the greater good, for their children, for their families, for society, which in the modern day and age, you know, maybe we should be asking for a bit of equality and sacrifice in return. But this is history, this is legend. It's a very famous legend and story about this castle, which has played such a pivotal part in Albanian history, in Illyrian history, and the history of this glorious city. I think I need a bigger size. Kan ju kapeli më të madh sepse ka kokën e madh. This is a plice from the north of Albania, traditionally worn by men, but I quite like it. What do you think? Oh, and we have another one. Okay, është lesh. Është lesh. It's made from wool. I'm not sure if it's going to be good for this heat. What do you think? This one? So here we are in the entry yard, the courtyard, the first yard of Rozafa Castle. I mean, this castle dates back 2,500 years, but obviously over the years, it's been invaded, it's been destroyed. There was a big earthquake here. It's been rebuilt. So different parts of it are in different states of repair and from different eras as well. But much of the stonework here is so remarkably well preserved. Let's have a closer look. So here you can see the river Buna and the Shiroka neighborhood of Shkodra. Beyond it, Lake Shkodra that stretches all the way to Montenegro. Montenegro that was, you know, perhaps part of Albania once upon a time, but that's a whole different story. Don't climb on the walls. There we are, climbing on the walls. The Rozafa Castle has survived the Illyrian Empire, the Byzantine, the Ottoman, and a terrible communist regime. But it has persevered. It's remained in place, mainly due to the three brothers and the sacrifice of Rozafa. But it also reminded me of a quote by Edith Duram, who also traveled in these areas. And it was along the lines of, you know, empires rise and fall, but only the Albanian goes on forever. Isn't this just the most beautiful place? Am I in Spain? No. Am I on a Greek island? No. Am I on the coast of southern Italy? No. This is Lake Shkodra in Albania. Over here is Montenegro. Over here is Malësia Imad, where I'll also be visiting. Behind me here is Koplik and an area where they grow lavender and other medicinal herbs. And over yonder is Shkodra. Now, this particular place is called Zogai. Now, Zogai has quite a sad and difficult past. It's the last village that you pass through before you reach the border with Montenegro. Now, during the communist regime, Albania was closed. You couldn't leave the country. Anyone who tried to leave would be shot on the spot, and their family would be rounded up, placed into prison, put into internment, or even killed just for being related to someone who had tried to leave. It was that tough. Now, at the time, this wasn't Montenegro, this was Yugoslavia. And this town, this area, this whole mountain behind and before Shkodra was considered like a dangerous zone. It was too close to the border. People might sneak over the mountains in the dark of the night to try and escape Enver Hoxha's Albania. A lot of people tried to pass this lake either by swimming or with rafts, and they would have just been shot and killed on the spot. You know, others drowned trying to make the attempt. There are countless stories from communism of people who tried to escape via this lake and these mountains here, and who lost their lives and whose families suffered as a response. So it's a beautiful lake, but it has a sad story. It's a graveyard of sorts, you know. But this whole area would have been closed. People were not allowed to pass through here. And it was very difficult for the families that lived here as well. But even before then, before the borders of Albania were properly defined, there were Albanians living on the Montenegrin side. And they had family close by, you know, in the next village. But then the border was closed, communism started, Yugoslavia was a thing, and they were not allowed to see their families. And they were cut off for generations, you know, even brothers and sisters, mothers and children. They didn't see each other. Some of them never met again because they passed away before the borders were opened. Here in Zogai, we've been invited to this woman's house, and here she weaves traditional Albanian carpets, chilims, on a loom in the old style, using wool and natural fibres. I'm going to go have a look at her work, and hopefully she'll give me an interview. In true Albanian hospitality style, we've been given a refreshment when we arrived. This is lung trentafil. It's juice made from rose petals. And this is exactly the kind of drink you need on a hot day. Si ka emrin, edhe për sa vit ti ka punun me cjerë?
Unë kam emrin nga me të artuna, edhe kam 42 vjet vetëm me këtë punë që punoj. Kena punu në parti punës. Domethënë, kam punu ja 12 vjet, deri në 90-ten. Prej në 86-ten deri në 90-ten. 11 vjet, jo, në 80-ten deri në 90-ten. Fale. Atëherë u shpërba gjithçka. Kena punu me eksportin, domethënë e dishim punën, por u shlu me vetëm tapeta. Atëherë në 90-ten fillu me bëme individuale. Fillu me mi bë këta. E pa me se fillu me pëlqy prap punën, kena bë të zit mall, që bëjme për masa më të mëdhaja. Atëherë punojmë rrugica, qëllim më të mëdhej, çanta, centro, si ti dojnë klienti. Dikur kena punu edhe me lule shumë, po të rejet i dojnë ma me pak lule, ma me ngjyra naturale, po jena të knaqën. Jena të knaqën. Sa është puna, nuk është njëre e knaqën, por kur ke punën, prap, ndrysh, adi se vjen të puna të pëlqen me punu, por nuk po dojnë brezili ma me punu.
Sa fëmijë ka?
Una 2, djale vajzë.
Edhe vajza ka interes për mësën?
Me mësu e ka mësu, por ja, nuk ka interes. Domethënë se kanë vazhdu shkollën.
A ju jeton në Shqipëri?
Po, në shkollë.
Ka dëshirën për ikën jashtë Shqipëri?
Jo, djali po, vajza ja. Vajza jeton në Shkodër, po ka 3 fëmijë. I heri ka 2 vecel. E kjo ka vajzën e vogël.
Shpjegoj pak për procesin, për një qilim.
Një kja është rrugicë.
Është rrugica, po?
Po, janë rrugica që i shtrohen të shtrati, të u gjokë, gjithko i marrin për gjithqa. Edhe ju pëlqejnë, se kjo është leshdelet i 100%.
Po, është lesh?
Po, leshdelet.
është nga Shqipëria?
Po, nga Shqipëria.
Edhe ngjyrë është naturale? Sa orë, sa ditë për një rrugice, për shembull, 1.5 metra gjatë?
Do më thanë, individuale mundet me ba për 2-3 ditë një rrugicë.
2-3 ditë.
Ama të qylymi vanoj.
Po.
Një qylym, 2 me 2 gjysmë për 10 ditë 3 veta.
Po, është.
Sa është e vështirë, se nga që i punohet gjithçka dhe me dorë. Sa shef që se punohet çdo gjë me dorë.
Edhe me vizatime.
Me vizatime, po vizatime, tash si janë vizatime, tana janë vizatime dhe nuk të lejen, domethënë po e kalove një fije ik.
Po.
Bukuria modelit. Edhe çdo gjë është milimetrike.
Është shumë e vështirë.
Po, është fije e vështirë.
Okej, prit, edhe një pyetje tjetër.
Ashe se fillon e hintesh, fillon trekantshin.
Ku shitesh rrugica?
Aty, unë punoj edhe me porosi, por bashkia na ka mundësu me dalë në pedonale, reklam ma shumë, ku shpërndaj një numër telefonit, kontaktit që kam temin, edhe atëherë.
Ku jashtë Shqipëri, ka interes nga diaspora?
Po, ka interes, ka shumë, diaspora jonë shumë.
Po.
Do më thanë, turisti merr një gjatë vogël krejt, por diaspora jonë i pëlqen edhe qëllimat e mëdhej. Se i dojnë mi shtëru.
So we've arrived here at this aquatic centre. It's run by the Bashki of Shkodra. And look, you can swim, you can go kayaking, you can use paddle boards, you can use a boat, you can go on a tour, you can just swim and enjoy this incredible blue water, you know. It's super hot. It's over 30 degrees today. I'm tired, I'm hot, I'm sunburned. I can't wait to dive in the water and have a good swim. So Lake Shkodra, it's actually the largest lake in the Balkans in Southeast Europe. It's about 530 square kilometers, but the size of it changes. So in the winter, it's bigger because the water comes from the rain, from the rivers, and then in the spring when all the snow in the Alps melts, it gets bigger, it floods some of the villages around, and of course Shkodra city as well. And then in the summer months, like now, the water level goes down. It's about 8 meters deep at its deepest point, so it's quite shallow in comparison to like Lake Ohrid. It's also a younger lake. It's a karst lake. Lake Ohrid is like millions of years old, whereas this is just thousands of years old in comparison. And it's great for swimming. It's a beautiful place, you know. But I remember I was here about 7 or 8 years ago and some friends of mine had brought a paddleboard from England, and this one guy, he was really proud of his paddleboard and he was sort of showing off with it. Look how good I am. And he went out into the lake, dropped the paddle, and then the current and the wind took him off towards Montenegro and he couldn't get back. And he was sort of shouting for help, but he was too far away, and the Coast Guard came and 2 fishing boats went out and intercepted him and brought him back, and he soon stopped boasting about his paddleboard after that. Who knows what happened to the paddle? But look now, it's glorious. Kids jumping in, people relaxing. In the evening you can have a barbecue here. There's jet skis and boats and paddleboards and everything you could possibly want. So we're on the minibus again now, and we've just driven through Shiroka, which is also home to an area populated mainly by Roma families, and it's very, very poor. The sort of badly constructed stone houses with tin roofs, sort of almost layered on top of each other, children running around barefoot, and there's a real lack of investment in this area, and I feel that maybe this should be something that's addressed, you know, by the government. I'm not saying clear them out and gentrify the area, but, you know, the standard of living there is not the same as it is in other areas. On a lighter note, I'm actually traveling with a group of foreign journalists. So there's some from Italy and there's some from the UK. And they were like, oh, you know, what's Shkodra like? And I said, well, it's known for 3 things. Bicycles, culture, and good-looking men. Because I'd heard this saying, you know, if you want a husband, you go to the north of Albania. If you want a wife, you go to the south. And they laughed. I haven't asked them what their verdict is yet. Maybe I'll wait till a bit later in the trip. Also, another thing to know about Shkodra is they speak a different dialect. So the Shkumbin River in central Albania splits the country into Geg and Tosk. Tosk is sort of the standard Albanian, which Enver Hoxha decided would be used by the entire country, and that is more of a southern dialect. Geg is used throughout the north, different versions of Geg, and also in Kosovo, North Macedonia, Montenegro as well, where there are Albanians. Geg is said to be the oldest version of the language. I think it's the most beautiful as well. It's the language that was used by Jurgi Fichte, you know, the great poet and writer. So here we don't say Faleminderi, we say Faleminders. So we've stopped in the hot region, which is about 40 minutes outside of Shkodra, and we're visiting a dairy. We're going to be trying out some cheese. I've been given these very stylish covers to put on my feet. It definitely smells like dairy around here. This is a really interesting place as well. It's a Catholic area. There's a huge white cross on the hill behind us. We'll get to learn more about that later, but for now, it's cheese time. Why are we putting these on, Dea?
Our heads.
Why?
Because to protect the cheese.
We don't want to get the cheese
All over.
dirty. Right, I've got to put this on as well, so I don't contaminate the cheese.
Hey! Wait, Bobby, why did you take this one?
Very stylish. Hold on. My head's a bit big for these things, though, unfortunately. It's not really, I need like 3, I think, 1 for each side, you know? There we go. Does it suit me? Do I look like a good dairy farmer? Beautiful. Here we go. Cheesy time.
E ftofin, taja pasteurizohet qumshti, pasteurizohet ati e kalaja, edhe pasteurizohet aja, kjeri hedhin këtu edhe ftofin.
Sa litre është?
10 kintal.
Sa?
10 kintal.
10.000 litre qumshti.
1.000.
A, 1.000. Aha.
1 kile.
Dhe pastaj, çfarë është
Pastaj hedhim
procesi?
këto, e mushim këto forma. Edhe edhem këtu të presa, e presojmë.
Pa.
E presojmë të presa.
Dhe çfarë variant djath ka? Çfarë
Djallë guda quhet.
guda?
Po, me teknolog holandes.
Pa.
Me tana llojtë ndryshme, me hora, me boranic, me sosan,
Me boranic?
zilok, me shumë, 2-3 muaj lloje kena. Rrijet
Shiqen në Shqipëri apo jashtë vendi?
në Shqipëri.
Në Shqipëri. Edhe për sa muaj rri djath?
Për i muaj duhet se s'ban.
Aha.
Sa ma shumë që të rrinë, as ma mirë është.
Aha. Sa muaj është maksimumi?
Ka edhe 2 vite që kena.
2 vit? Wow.
Po.
Shumë mirë. Edhe proces është një familjar? Për bën djath, është një familja jote?
Kena
Apo vetëm
familja dhe kena 2-3 punëtorë.
për shumë brezi, dhe më thënë?
Kena pas si tradit
Po.
në shtëpis, adin, atëherë kena vazhdua me teknolog holandes.
Shumë mirë.
Bëjmë kështë. Këhet. Kena bojt ndryshme. Kja është pikant. I kërkojnë shumë të format e vogla. Kja është me orra, kja me shërbel, kja pikant, kja me piper. Piper. Voronica.
Ah, ok. Questa?
Kja pikant.
Piccante. Ah, il finale?
Pikant është, po është pa lidh me pastur shimore. Marrim Holland këtë pastur shimore. Në të nallojt këto.
Shumë bukur. Deja. Çfarë është brenda kjo? Wow. Oh! Wow! Po shumë bukur, po sa shumë. Çfarë është kjo?
Ja, të shkallon dhe
Kaçkëval, u preferua shumë. Edhe kjo?
janë forma.
Është kaçkëval për formën tjetër. Pa? Ua, ngjyrë shumë e bukur, blu, verdh.
This is what they make it out.
Po të zezë?
I want to eat this cheese.
Me boronicë, shumë mirë. Boronicë e egër? Po, nga afe. Aha, mirë. This place is amazing. Look at it, floor to ceiling cheese. And all of it is produced locally. They use milk from local cows and all the different colors. I mean, it's with boronice, with different fruits, with sage that is grown locally. You know, the berries come from the mountains. The sage is grown in the lowlands here. It's made here, it's processed here, it's aged here, it's packaged here, and then it's spread out and sold throughout all of Albania. I mean, There is so much cheese here. You could eat one of these, every day for the next year, Very pungent smell, very tangy smell, but I mean, they're just beautiful. Like the colors, the form, they're perfect. This woman's been making cheese for years. It's been in their family, but with the advent of technology, they've been able to upscale and also standardize what they're making as well. This is the first time I've ever been to a cheese factory, and it's great. I just want to try some now, though. So now it's time to try some cheese. And I'm guessing from the little glass, we're going to be given rakia as well. So I've got my cheese, I've got diatme boronits. That was a big bite. And of course, to wash it all down, a little bit of raki rushi, grown from these grapes right behind me, gazuar. So what just happened here? She thought this was water and took a huge swig of it. This has happened to every Albanian at least once in their life. It was raki, wasn't it? How do you feel? So I've woken up this morning in Lepushe. Lepushe is about 100 kilometers north of Shkodra, deep in the folds of the mountains. Here we're around 1,270 meters above sea level. It's really high. Now Lepushe itself is sort of situated in a valley, and it's surrounded by 45 different peaks. In other words, there's a lot of mountains here. Now some of these mountains are called the Accursed Mountains. And they got their name, well, actually, there's lots of different stories about how they got their name. But one story is that there was a local woman who lost 2 of her sons in the mountains, because these mountains are perilous. They're craggy, they're dangerous, they're covered in snow. There's landslips and landslides. And she lost both of her sons there. And therefore, she called them the Cursed Mountains. But there are various other stories as well. Now, Lepushe and the area Selsa that we had to pass through on the way here has been massively affected by emigration. But there are some people that have come back and have chosen to make a life here. We're staying in this gorgeous butina, which is perched on the side of the meadows overlooking the valley below. It's about 10 degrees cooler here than it is in Shkodra, which is quite a welcome relief because yesterday was pretty hot. I'm going to enjoy my coffee and I'm going to go have a little look around. This is Lepushe, and what an amazing place it is. Now, the road from Shkodra yesterday, it took us up through Hot, right to the top of Tamara, and then there's this winding road that goes down the side of the hill, and you look at it, you think, I'm not going down there, but then you start the journey, and it's just incredible. You go down, 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 deep into the valley, and you get the feeling that you're just being swallowed up by the earth, that you're going to the heart of the mountains, and these peaks are so vast and so big, and there's just layers and layers and layers of rock, and you get the feeling, one, that you're going to a place where perhaps no one has ever set foot, and 2, that these huge rocks could almost swallow you up at any moment, with no warning. But it's just spectacular. When I sit and I look at these mountains passing by, and I'm lost for words in how beautiful they are. And for me to be lost for words, that's quite impressive. But I learned something else quite interesting about this area. So this area called Selca, most people have left. They've gone to other cities, but a lot have gone to the US, particularly Detroit area. So I saw quite a few American flags dotted around, which is quite surreal because it's so remote here. And then you see this big splash of like the Western world hanging outside a house. But they also have a beauty pageant here. But this is not a beauty pageant for bikinis and fancy evening dresses. This is Miss Mountain. And a lot of the immigrants come back, and as well some of the local women, and they take part in Miss Mountain. But there's a difference. They wear the jubleta. Now, for those that don't know, the jubleta is an item of clothing which has been worn here for thousands of years. This item of clothing is also part of UNESCO. It's completely unique to this area, and it's incredible. It consists of a black sort of apron which then hangs down into a bell-shaped skirt, which goes down at the back as well. And it's made from strips of black felt. It's incredibly heavy. A real giubletta is probably about 12 or 15 kilos in weight. I've worn one before and they are so heavy, but they are so beautiful. And there's not many people left who know how to make it the original way. The craft is being lost. Some people make it with pre-bought felt. Some people make it with wool. But actually the way to make it is to make the strips with black wool and you mash it with water to make this very, very thick felt. And it's so thick because here in the winter, it goes down to like -20 perhaps, maybe more. And they told me that the snow can reach 5 meters high. So you need something thick to protect yourself from that kind of weather. So yeah, they compete, they wear the giubletta, they wear a very specific, intricate hairstyle, which takes about 2.5 hours to do. And this is featuring very tight curls, which are all sort of done by hand. There's no electric tongs used here for this process. And I just feel, you know, this kind of culture, this mountainous culture, this beautiful, thousands of years old culture, it's being lost, you know, as people are going to cities and they're forgetting it, they're going to the US, you know, but here it's still alive, beating away like a heart in the middle of the Albanian Alps. So we're hiking down into the village and we just crossed this stream here. I had to take my shoes off to walk across. This water is freezing. I can't feel my feet at the moment. This big plant here with the big leaves is called Lepushe. And that's how the village got its name, from this specific plant, which also grows along the Shala River. So this is the centre of the village of Lepushe. There's no electric taxis here. There's no telebingo. There's no coffee shops. There's no posta shqiptar. Askeja fare. Just nature and a few butinas and farmers and birds and trees and mountains. But this behind me here, it used to be a butina, a guest house, and it used to be owned by the last remaining Burrnesha in Albania. Her name was Justina. Now, for those that don't know, Burrnesha in Albanian families, particularly in the north, the man is the head of the household. And there were cases where the man, the head of the household, was killed or wasn't able to assume his duties. And in those cases, there were women, the next woman in line, and she would take an oath, a pledge of virginity, of celibacy, and she would become a Burrnesha, like a man. She would dress like a man, speak like a man, and assume all the duties of the male head of the household. But of course, she was not allowed to get married or to have sexual relations as a woman. This is nothing to do with gender identity. It's to do with the codes, the traditions of the north of Albania. And she was the last remaining one. And it said that she has gone to America with the rest of her family. And the butina is now closed. The Burrnesha of Albania is no more. Përshëndetje, edhe faleminderit për kohë dhe më fal për qetësyse.
Jo, unë jam shumë e kënaqur për interviste për shumë gjëra për njerëz që vinë për jashtë me kënaqësi, ata ka di.
Po. Po ti ka historinë shumë interesante, Justina.
Adin historia ime është shumë interesante se adin përpara na kanë edhe vetë sistemi, adin sistemi komunist, si pa jena kanë shumë varfen, adin shumë varfen. Edhe atë nana ishte me fëmijë shumë.
Sa?
Na ishim gjashtë. Edhe baba ka vdekiri, baba ka vdekiri.
Po.
Atë na kam nej për me nimua familjen, edhin për me rritë vllaznit, motrat, për me agon një dorë nën stemme. Atë na, nuk e di që adon me një intervistë në gjën kështu, nuk e di që adon me bane, pyetje veç ta bana kështu.
Për të gjithë, do me thënë, mama jote rritë gjithë fëmijë vetë.
Po, na jina kanë 4 motra edhe 2 vllazën.
Po. edhe pastaj ti është si Burrnesha.
Po, unë jam Burrnesha,
Po, sepse intervista është edhe për njerëz e huaj, sepse do të bëni titre anglisht, edhe të lutem shpjegoja pak për Burrnesha. Çfarë është Burrnesha?
Burrnesha është që kur ti e vendos, unë kam vendos më bë Burrnesha në moshën 23 vjeç, 23 vjeç. Edhe se se diftova përpara se ishim nga shumë të varfën, edhe vetë bliga familjen, edhe ju thash që unë do të rrinë të bëjmë Burrnesha, do të ndihmoj ju. Edhe nona nuk ishte dakord për me kanë Burrnesha. Thotë pse don ti me ndaj Burrnesha, duhet me krijuar familjen, anë këtej. Edhe unë e venosa, ton që dakord për veçnons. Nona nuk je fort dakord. Për me bë Burrnesha duhet më kushtu vetëm familjes, me punua, si të me majtë traditat, me majtë gjonat, se nuk du, kur ti bësh Burrnesha, ashtë si puna e fritni, si e venos, si më bë frata, nuk mundesh as më martu, as kërgjan, bash me punua, se ata i kushtuan zotit na, i kushtuan në familjes. Edhe unë jam kushtu atyne, ata tashe, vllazët edhe motra, çfarë do me pas vetë në gjë mogot, ata i përgjigjen për mua, ashtu si që jam përgjigj vetë atyne përpara. Sa është gjë shmushme, se respekton gjithkush. Edhe kur jeti Burrnesha qysh e vogël, se s'di e pa kupton qysh e vogël, edhe njerëzit kanë shumë respekt. Njerëzit jashtë, personat jashtë janë.
Sepse është një koncept vështirë për njerëz jashtë Shqipërisë për të kuptuar.
Po, dikush nuk e kupton, edhe një gjë të keqe ka Shqipënia, se nuk i vlerëson, se këto Burrnesha duhet me hinë diku një libra, diçka me kanë i titë, se janë veçanta, janë pak. Tash me thëmë se me mua nuk do të ketë ma. Unë jam ma e reja, rrekë Shkodrës, pa marrë se ka kun. Mund të ketë duke të ketë një Burrnesha, e ke në Laç.
Aha, në Laç. Akoma?
Po, akoma. Edhe një e ke në Lezhë.
Aha, është interesant, kam në shtëpi në Lezhë.
Një e ke në Lezhë, ka dorën e shkurtume, këti mundesh me hinë Google, me hinë YouTube, mundesh me gjetë,
Sa vjeç është?
Ajo mund të jetë, për vjetë nuk e di mirë, po është pak me vjetër, ajo mund të jetë një 74-5 mund të jetë, kurse një ndurës ka vdek par vjet ka vdek, lali, se a keni gjua, ka një ndurës ka vdek. Ajo a kanë shumë inteligente, shumë e meshme. Në vite, e kam dash shumë, edhe për verë vite këtu, bile me ka falë një, ashtu me ka ba një piktura, ajo vetë me ka godit me të guskat e detit. Se ka jetua në Durrës, pa ka kështë që ka vdek, nuk është. Ka jetua vetër, ka vdek.
Po tani ti jeton në New York?
Po, unë tash...
Se ik në Amerikë?
Jo, unë iki me vizë, kam marrë vizë se kam familja tje. Shkoj se ashtë edhe, unë gjithmonë jam kushtu aty në familjes, po adin vetën, ti me naj 2-3 ditë vetën një është, nuk ka jetë vetën. Atëna unë shkoj me takua familjen, po nuk shkoj me najse, unë jam shumë adhëtore.
Është vështirë për ju për kra Burrnesha?
Po, është i fje e vështirë, i fje vështirë se gjithmonë ti mu përgjigj veç për familje, me punua veç për familje, duhet se e ke venos, po tash ka arë koha, është liri, ke liri fjallet, ke liri me dal, ke liri me ka duesh me shku, se dikur nuk ke mujt, gratë nuk kanë, përpara nuk kanë mujt me ik, nuk kanë mujt me dal, dhe me hin, me pini me kafe, me hin ose me shku një ose rante, se nuk kanë, atëna nuk kanë shumë vështirë, gratë kanë me shami, rrubë, si këtonë kështë me punë krye, me funa, këto gratë e fshatit kanë vetëm më shumë me punua mrenë, me bani, me punua, jo, kurse kur je Burrnesha, je ma lirë, mundesh me dalë, mundesh me shkua, nuk vesh kur, nuk ven kur, i plet flokë kurtën, nuk mundesh kur me, je si trim, Bara.
Më falë për pyetje, po ka dëshiron për familje, apo më falë për pyetje,
jo, nuk ka gjanë, kam kuptuar mirë. Adin nuk është e vështirë kur ti e vendos, se nuk ta ka imponua kush adin mu ba me zart. E ke vendos ti adin. Kur ti e vendos, bifjala me lexuni këtë libër, ke vendos ti nuk ka të ta ban kush me thon as burri, as vajza. E vështirë tash për mua se janë familje larg, edin. Edhe vëllavi, se njëri vëlla më ka vdek 50 vjeç, edhe për fëmijë, edin. Për mua është vështirë, edin, se i kam larg. Megjithëse unë flas në telefon, po adin ata dy fëmija se ka, vëllavi ka një vajzë, një djalë. Kurse vlasim ka dek, ka lani djale e divërta, flasim telefon, po kur nuk i ke, kur je afer, edhe me hagër bashkë buki, me bani mua bet, me dal me ecë pak me ta, është shtirë, edhe për mua, ta është një shtirë.
So this is Justina's shop. She also has a shop where she, for many years, had sold various medicinal plants and herbs and fruits, things that can be used to make teas that cure various ailments, rheumatism, bronchitis, a fever, stomach problems, heart problems, hypertension, you name it. There's a little bag over here with something natural in it, grown in the surrounding mountains, that will cure it. There's also a range of liqueurs as well, rakis made of different things with different herbs sort of infused into them. And she used to sell them to tourists, but there's just not enough to sustain it and the butina as well, which meant that she had to close up shop, and she's spending a lot of time in America now. She has loads of books as well, including some very, very old books, 100 years old, some a bit older, which give information on what these herbs and fruits can be used for. So she's drawn a lot of knowledge and information from those. She's enriched her knowledge, used the land around her to carve out this little niche. It would be a shame if all this knowledge would be lost, I hope she can find a way to continue. She's also given me some rakia made from wild plums, which I'm enjoying, certainly brought an extra smile to my face. But what a wonderful place, and such amazing surroundings. She said she loves New York, but her heart is here. And honestly, I don't blame her. So they told me she doesn't live here anymore. She's gone to America. And then I was outside the house and I could hear music and some singing. And I said, hello, Prashanetya. And then she came, Justina, or Duni, which is her other name. And she invited us in, we did an interview, she gave us some drinks. That was really an amazing experience. It always pays to pursue the story a bit further. This is Matuf. Now, Matuf is half Chenshari and half Kangal, right? Yeah. So Chenshari is also known as an Illyrian shepherd dog, and they are present in much of the Balkans, Albania, Kosovo, and even some parts of Croatia as well. And they are specifically for guarding sheep and herds of animals in the mountains. They're not very energetic, but they are big, they are powerful, they are strong, they are fearless. And they have no hesitation in fighting off a wolf or a bear. They're very good sheep herders, very good protectors. They are absolutely beautiful dogs. They can grow to be like 50 kilos in weight and even bigger than this one. He's mixed with a Kangal, which is a Turkish dog of a similar kind of purpose. And he's just beautiful. Look at him. His fur is so thick. It has 2 layers, kind of like a husky, which is perfect for the freezing cold winters here. I've been hanging around all day trying to get an interview with him. You have anything you want to say? You're going to be famous, Matuf. You are. So when we were in Lepushe today, I met this woman and I asked her name. And she told me, well, I have 2 names. And I didn't really understand her explanation. She said, oh, it's just something we used to do years ago. So I asked why some people in this region have 2 names. And it turns out that years ago, when there wasn't such access to doctors and of course being so far away, if a child got sick and nearly died, maybe from fever or convulsions or anything, and they survived, they would then be given a second name because it was like they were reborn, they had a second life, a second chance, So kids who have been very sick and survived often have 2 names. The name they were born with, which they no longer use, and the new name, But this is often kept secret outside of the family because they don't want people knowing that the child was sick. It's seen as a bit shameful, so they're only ever referred to by the first name, by the second name. So this is Syria Sheganit, and here, right here, is one of the water sources for Lake Shkodra. There are several, this is one of them, and there is actually a Suri, a blue eye, a big mass of water that goes down some 100 meters. It's incredibly, incredibly deep. There is another Suri around the corner as well, which is actually an eye shape as well. But this is stunning. This landscape is beautiful. You can go biking, people are swimming. There are fields of lily pads over there, cormorants, pelicans, you know, all flying around and enjoying life. Yeah, keep your hands up. So now we're trying to enter the Suri Sheganit. The guy has turned off the motor and he's using the paddle to see if we can enter because the channel is a bit shallow, but the eye itself is so deep that no one's ever got to the bottom of it. So that's a bit terrifying, really. I'm here at Salvia Nord in Malasiërmaz, not far from Shkodra, not far from Kuplik. And this is a place where the owner grows a variety of different medicinal herbs, such as lavender, 2 different types of lavender, sage, helichrysum, and various others. He also has bees over here, which make honey from the flowers. I bet it tastes amazing. This area of Shkodra is very well known for medicinal herbs. It's near the lake, it's near the sea, it's near the mountains. It has the perfect climate. About 7 years ago, I was driving through this part, past fields and fields of lavender, and we had to stop the car because the smell was so relaxing, it was interfering with the ability to drive. I'm going to talk to the owner and find out a bit more about what he produces.
Nena trashëgimi një ferme që është marrë prej 55 vjetëve me bimë aromatike mjekësore, që shkone e ekonomisë totale të komunizmi Shqipërisë. Ma shumë na jena marrë në demokraci me këtë punë, cilën e kena thëvua dhe e kena përmirësua dhe i kena realizu përthuajse të gjitha ata objektiva që ne kena vu vetes tonë për me arritë këtu. Kjo është e formalizuar në vitin 2012. Që është ba me NIP e me shoqe Seve dhe Ramaj, ka ba biznes të vogël ma parë të mesëm dhe vazhdon me qenë ky biznes deri para një viti me pronarë servetin edhe me pjesëtarët e familjes kryesisht që merren me këtë punë gjithë. Por sa ajo ka pësu një problem shëndetësor të gjujt edhe ka dalë në kemp. Kështu që pavarësisht se ne tash nuk e kena këtë benefitit e të qenit në rrugë institucionale një biznes, sepse vetë fati ka qenë i tillë, vazhdojmë me bën njësoj si të kishim prap biznesin tonë. Tashti në 2012 ka fillu ky biznes, ka fillu me bazamentin e trashëgimisë që kena pas, jena marrë me këtë punë vazhdimisht, dhe pothuajse kena pas gjitha asetet kryesisht intelektuale, ekonomike, e tjerë, për me bën këtë punë mrekullueshme.
Edhe çfarë bimje ka në Salvia Nord?
Ne kultivojmë rreth 10 bimë. Duke fillu nga shërbela që është ajo para, atje ai rreth i parë, është me 3 bimë dhe kena vunë kryet venit, helichrysum italicum, që bima immortale, bima pa vdekësisë, lavandula vera dhe lavandula angustifolia, timus vulgaris, është kjo tjetra, ajo jeshilja është trumza, po s'mund të afrohna për punë bledve, ajo është rozmarina dhe krejt kë kopsht, që quhet kopshti i resurseve gjenetike. Është përfaqëson gjithë bimë më të famshëm të veriut Shqipërisë.
Well, that's it from me. Over the last 5 days, I've travelled from the south of Albania to the north, some 1,000 kilometres. I filmed 2 documentaries. I did it all with a 6-year-old child in tow, and I filmed it all myself. This has been the most incredible adventure. I've been to Pogradec, to Pustec, to Lin. I've travelled to Selce, Poshtme. I then went north in the episode you've just seen. I went to Shkodra, Tamara, Lepushe, Hot. I've been on Lake Shkodra. I've been on boats. I've been to lavender farms. I've eaten so much food. I've visited royal tombs. I've met some incredible people along the way. I've got sunburn. I've been tired. I've been frustrated, but it just has been the most wonderful experience. I hope you get even this much pleasure out of watching it as I did bringing it to you. We are truly blessed to live in such an incredible, beautiful, diverse and culturally and historically rich country. We have to learn to love Albania more. Until next time, you can watch Inside Albania on Euronews Albania every Saturday at 4. We are on YouTube, Euronews Albania, where you can also catch up with all the past episodes and, of course, across all major podcasting platforms. I'm off to sleep for a week. Until next time, Mira Pavshim.